McBain is back, baby. Big news in Mammoth Land. Jack McBain has signed. We talk about it on this emergency podcast edition of Locked On Mammoth.
You are Locked On Mammoth, your daily podcast on the Utah Mammoth, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It's a huge piece of the puzzle now firmly in place for the Utah Mammoth. I'm veteran NHL voice Tom Callahan, joined by longtime team analyst Robyn Leaño, and together we are going to talk on today's Locked On Mammoth about Jack McBain. He is McBack. A huge contract signing for the Mammoth. Thanks for making us your first listen each and every single day when it comes to the Utah Mammoth Hockey Club, because we bring you stuff like this. Robyn, breaking news, and it's really good news.
Oh, it is absolutely amazing. We are going through our evening motions, Tom, and we get a chance to win, and this news drops, and we're like, oh, wow, it happened today. It's a great day. Because we wanted this to happen. We knew it was going to happen. The question was when, and seemed like the when was much sooner than we expected.
It really was. And as we were planning out the rest of our week, thinking, Wednesday, maybe this will happen on Wednesday. Nope, Monday night. The news comes down. And so great to know that this is Jack McBain in on a 5-year contract. Now, remember, we told you that just because the club said we're going to arbitration didn't mean they were ever going to make it to that room. Mm-hmm. They didn't. 5-year extension with an AAV of $4.25 million. Robyn, first of all, let's talk about the length of this contract. 5 years for Jack McBain. That is a significant investment in this young man.
It is an investment to me, and it's interesting, Tom, because you and I were kind of thinking on a couple different things. We were thinking shorter-term deals, whatever will get him, like, we'll buy an extra year of negotiation. We were thinking that extra year of RFA eligibility, or we were thinking bridge deals. What's going to allow Utah to figure out what they're going to do potentially with the future of McBain, with a lot of other question marks going in with other players for this team, and them going with 5 years, Tom, tells me that they are truly invested in the kind of player that Jack McBain is and what he brings to the table.
Absolutely. And I've got a couple of quotes, too, I want to get to from the press release that talk about exactly that. But first, I have to tell you, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So the quotes that came from the press release that I thought were pretty big, Robyn. First of all, we'll start with Chris Armstrong, no relation to Bill, but he is the president of hockey operations for the Utah Mammoth. And he said the commitment that both sides are making to each other in this extension tells you everything you need to know about the value and importance that have been placed on winning together. And this, of course, is Chris Armstrong saying this. Jack's versatility as a player, his care for his teammates, and his demonstrated willingness to do whatever it takes to win are all critical elements to our future team success. Then Bill Armstrong, general manager of the Utah Mammoth, says, we're very pleased to sign Jack to a new contract. He is a big, strong, physical player who competes hard on a nightly basis and brings a gritty toughness to our group. Jack's an important part of the championship caliber team we're building, and we look forward to having him back on our roster in the foreseeable future. So clearly, we're talking about a couple of things here, Robyn. We are talking about the fact that both player and team want to be together at a very important juncture in this team's growth. And they commit to him with dollar and I think a reasonable term. There's nothing about it that makes me upset. 5 years, I think when you're 25 carries you to 30. I don't have a problem with that. So, but the flip side of it is, I mean, the team wants him here because clearly they value the type of player he is.
Exactly. And I'll even allow the flip side here. A 5-year deal also tells me a couple of things about McBain. It tells me, one, he wants to be with his team, and two, that he's coupled with the dollar value, that he is investing in himself he believes that he is, that he is going to be providing that level of talent with this team for the next 5 years to be with the Utah Mammoth and put it in through what will be his prime.
So he's jumping up on his base here, and like I say, going to 4.25, which is great. Now, and I mean, we can talk later again about Barrett Hayton, because now this leaves a question mark there for Barrett Hayton. But right now, Jack McBain gets himself his extension here for 5 years. Robyn, the other thing that is really important about McBain is he throws a lot of hits. He plays physical. He goes out there. He just pinballs all over the ice. I love that. He's actually, believe it or not, since he made his debut, this was a pretty cool little stat, and I like my Nuggets. Since making his NHL debut on April 12th of 2022, he ranks 3rd in the league in hits. 3rd overall. That's wild. And it's second most among any forward. Garnet Hathaway has 884. So
what did they say, Tom, was like one of my favorite players that fits into this Bill Armstrong mold? Because there's different types of players, right? But the very specific type of player is what Jack McBain is, a power forward. He's physical, he gets those hits, but he uses those hits as an opportunity to create offensive plays. To do that, to create shots to get points on the board for the Utah Mammoth. And that's why they're seeing his value, right? Because as a power forward, what he does is to a T. He does that job perfectly.
And his place in the lineup, Robyn, I think is very important as well. Look, number one, I don't think that this team can have enough grit and sandpaper, because I've talked about my concept of a winning formula, and it is being physical. It is being strong, and it is, especially in the playoffs, being able to push other teams around. So I like this. Utah goes shopping in its own store. They wrap up a player that they like, and I think can make a big impact and will continue to grow into an even better everyday NHLer now that he's entering his mid-20s. So I think the timing's pretty good on this. The other thing about the term, Robyn, before we start talking AAV here, when a player plays hard like this and they play a physical game, it can shorten a career. Like, it's very hard to play this way for 20 years. Very few people can do that. But the prime years of a player physically, 25 to 30, they now have that secured within this 5-year window with McBain, and that's another reason I really like this deal. They are going to get the best of peak physical condition, we hope, barring injury, Jack McBain.
Yeah, and you don't have to risk about him playing too hard, because now that contract's put into place, but you also don't have to risk him kind of falling back, falling into a falling into a lull and getting too comfortable, because he knows what his role is. He knows that he needs to play physical, because we don't know at this time. I don't think there's going to be, but there's any protections on this contract, like no trade clause or anything like that. Like, if he doesn't play well, they can easily try to decide to move on with that contract. But that's besides the point, right? But the point. Essentially, what I'm getting was that we're going to get we're going to get prime Jack McBain throughout this contract, and that is the key.
Absolutely. All right, Robyn's got some fancy stats that I know she wants to get to, and we're going to talk about those, and we're going to dive in. Look at the grin already if you're watching on YouTube, the smile. We're going to get into prime McBain, and then the other thing, too, I want to talk about this 4.25 AAV. What does that mean for Utah when it comes to their cap, their future considerations on contracts, that sort of thing as well? We're going to talk about that in just a moment. And today's show brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. Look, you're already following the action, so am I. So why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and it keeps things fresh within the app. There's new daily promotions, there's fun ways to bet, it's easy to use, it's fast to pay out, and it makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Are you new to FanDuel? New customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Tom Callahan, Robyn, Leaño here with you on Locked On Mammoth. If you like what you hear, please subscribe. That way, right away, if you click the bell on YouTube, you know this is an instant premiere. It's an emergency podcast. Boom, drops right away. You get the bell. You're hearing it first. You can talk to your friends with complete analysis as we break it down from every single angle. That's why you want to be an everydayer. That's why you want to make this your first listen each and every single day when it comes to the Utah Mammoth. Robyn, we talked about the term, talking about the player. I know we're going to dive into the deep stuff here on the stats in a little bit, but I want to talk about the AAV at $4.25 million. So this now takes Utah's cap space, according to our friends at Puckpedia, down to $6.657 million remaining. This is a maximization of those dollars that are there. And again, they are now they are not overflowing on the active roster. They're not overflowing on contracts. They will have some decisions to make. But at 4.25 for the next 5 years, do you see this contract as one that might put a squeeze on certain other either players or extensions? Or do you think that with the cap growth coming up over the next couple of seasons, the projected cap growth, by the way, that this is pretty much in tune with what you would expect?
I think it's a pretty good value for what we're getting in that term, because like it's interesting, Tom, that it was getting brought up, because I do want to kind of bring the term into the conversation as we get to the AV, because it comes in twofold, right? Because we were talking about the shorter term deals, right? And to me, when I looked at the shorter term deals, and I'm talking about a 1 to 3 year deal, to me, I was looking not much more based off qualifying offer, not a whole lot more than what he was getting paid last. His last was around just a little over $3 million a year. So I was thinking, okay, maybe 3.5, maybe around there, just to get him into the next stage of the contract. Then you can renegotiate and figure out, all right, where are you at? How much? What role you're actually going to play in? But with the 5-year deal, 4.25 makes sense, because it shows that that they are they're invested in it. One, but two, that it's that they believe that it aligned with where this cap, how much the cap is raising over a while. It makes it team friendly still, but so the team can still go out and maybe go out for some purchases and player swings, and whether it be trade deadline or free agency acquisitions in the next couple of summers to really work on. And honestly, I think it's a good value. I think it's a really good value for both sides. Like it could be perceived as high based off where you're projecting Jack McBain to play. Most of us project him to be a middle to bottom 6 forward. But if you go in with that expectation, sure, that's fine. I'm okay with that.
And if a Cooley extension comes down the pipe here in the next however long, where Logan Cooley is now making an extra $7 to $8 million on top of his $950, you know the cap is going to grow next year. You are still cap compliant, even with everybody you've got on the books right now. And we're going to do an episode later this week about, some expiring contracts and things like that. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. We're not going to get into that here. But I think that this, Robyn, still leaves you very comfortable at the $4.25 million AAV over the course of the 5 years with the projected cap growth. You get a player you really like at a term that I think is extremely livable, yet keeps the player happy as well, to contribute to the continued growth of this team. So I really like this contract. Can I just say I was a little worried I was a little worried about what the actual cost might be to wrap McBain up long term, and I think this is better than I thought it would be.
Yeah, I was worried too because to me, like we were talking about the potential of, let's say like a Pittsburgh Penguins going out for an offer sheet, right? Obviously, when Utah went for the club elected arbitration, that kind of protected that from happening. But I was thinking, it's like, oh, is Pittsburgh going to go offer anything north of $5 million or whatever? And then what are you going to do? What's the term? What are they like? And is Utah willing to match that? It adds a lot more complicated factors, especially what Utah needs to do for other players as well. It's like, what levels of risk are you willing to take here? And to me, I feel like this is it's a very calculated decision on putting this term to this dollar value.
Let us know your thoughts. Do you like the contract? You think it's a good one? You like the term? Do you like the AAV? What would you have changed about the contract if you were wearing the GM's cap, which I often like to make Robyn wear? This time, though, we're going to do a little analytics and a little talking about the player, the stats. We're going to get inside of that here and talk about Jack McBain. And when we continue on with Locked On Mammoth. Tom Callahan, Robyn Leaño, Locked On Mammoth. Hey, it's been a really fun episode for us because we love when we get to handle the good news, the breaking news. Jack McBain is back 5 years, 4.25 million AAV, and that is a big one for the Utah Mammoth. They were heading to team-selected arbitration if they didn't get things worked out. But, Robyn, as we had heard, they were pretty close coming down, so no big surprise that things get worked out. We're very happy to see that. So, good news there.
It is good news there. I'm glad we got to this point, right? A lot of us have been wondering, like we've been really wanting McBain to come back. So we think he plays a big role in this team, and I think it's important to say to add in that it's the role that he is going to play, right, Tom? We know he's playing a bottom six guy, right? Mainly middle. I'd say middle six, right? Not bottom six, but middle six. He can jump up if he needs to, but he's a third line guy, and I think that's his bread and butter.
And you do need those players, those integral players in the middle of the lineup who, again, I love the physical game and has a little bit of scoring touch that can add to that. So always a threat to make things happen. And you know what? Sometimes you just got to get to the blue paint and knock it in with your shovel. And, McBain has that in his game. So Robyn sparkles with analysis. And,
oh, God.
See what I did there? So, Robyn, I'm going to turn you loose on this one, too. Let's talk about McBain, the player. And let's dig into some of the insights that you have on Jack McBain.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I do want to point something out that we didn't mention earlier, but I do want to mention because it's really important, and I think it plays a lot into how everything played out. Is McBain was one of 6 skaters for Utah, by the way, who played all 82 games. That's incredible, by the way. It shows the confidence that this team had, and they wanted that he and the kind of role he plays, despite also thinking of the kind of player that he is. We talked about the physicality aspect and how it can kind of reckon the players, it can add into injuries, it can do like something like that. But that didn't happen to McBain, right? He still kept on the physicality, playing all 82 games. Now I'm looking at some of the stats here, and it's interesting because he didn't play 82 games last year with Arizona, but you can still use that as a comparison. He did play up 82 games the previous year with Arizona, so there is that. And I'm looking on Natural Stat Trick, by the way, to look at some of these stats to kind of give me an idea of how much McBain has improved over these couple of years. And to me, it's actually pretty incredible. I think he's got I'm trying to see if I could find it where it was on here. Give me 1 second as I kind of get back on here. But what McBain has had, and here's an example right here essentially on hits, right? We talked about hits and how important that was to kind of really show the physicality aspect, Tom. He registered 289 hits with Utah this season, right? Last year with Arizona, 199. The previous season with Arizona, 293. That really just shows the level that he puts on there. But it even goes beyond. I'll even go beyond that because, yeah, hits are one thing, but you need to be good on the ice. Face-offs, he's gotten better. Went from a 45 win percentage. And again, I also add these are 5-on-5 scenarios, right? Not all the other scenarios. 5-on-5 gives me an aspect of how this player does on even strength. From 45.3% in 22-23 with Arizona, 46.45 last year with Arizona, the previous season, I should say, and to 51.18 this past season with Utah. That's a pretty good jump for face-off percentage. With winning 216 face-offs won, 206 face-offs lost. Let's start with that, Tom. I think that's a huge improvement.
You know how I like to harp on how important it is to win draws, and why Kevin Stenlund is so important and why he gets so many defensive zone starts. But that's something that you can also maybe now lean on someone else to try to help him shoulder that load. And Jack McBain, big player, of course, 6'4", 219. That's the Bill Armstrong MO. And the average time on ice, 13:34 from last year, Robyn, shows that can be used in different situations, but you're not the player you're counting on to suck up 20 minutes of ice, right? So I think that carefully deploying McBain in the right places at the right time to succeed is still going to be very important in developing the player.
It really is. Another thing I do want to bring up, Tom, and this is where I get into the more advanced numbers, and it's a number that needs to be taken with a grain of salt. But you can use it based off of, and again, I'll use year-on-year comparisons because it does show a level of improvement. And it was a compare with a couple other things that kind of still mean the same thing, but you can kind of do some comparisons, and I'll let you be able to kind of make a assumption for yourself as well. And I'll just go ahead and just read it off for you guys. And I'm going to use not the Corsi number, but the Fenwick number. To me, it adds it a little bit of extra. Fenwick, I mean, it's the same thing as Corsi. It just takes away blocked shots, so it really just shows his offensive awareness a little bit more. And I'm doing just again percentages, not just the actual numbers, but the percentages here. 22-23 with Arizona, 41.05, 47.34 Fenwick percentage, 23-24 with Arizona, 51.08 Fenwick 4 percentage with Utah 5-on-5 scenarios last season. His offensive awareness is getting better, Tom.
Yes, absolutely. And that's 3 years as a pro now for McBain, and you expect it going into years 4, 5, 6, 7, it's going to get even better. And Robyn, I think you're showing us growth metrics, right? That's what you're showing us.
Exactly. And I think that's the most important aspect, right? Getting those growths, and they're showing that he's becoming a better player. And that's why I want to bring up all these other shot metrics and everything else, because I started off with hits because that was the bread and butter, right? We talked about his physicality, but he can do more than that. We're showing why is he worth $4.25 million? Because he can do all this, and because he continues to improve.
Exactly. All that in a bag of chips. So what flavor of chip would Jack McBain be? I don't know. Maybe spicy barbecue. No, that's spicy tuna. He'd be spicy barbecue. I don't know. Maybe you can let us know in the comments because I have no idea. All right, Robyn, please take it back from me. I'm wandering away from the path.
No, absolutely. It's all right. But I feel like, I mean, you can take so many different numbers on here, but I don't want to go too much because then at this point, I am just reading too many numbers, right?
But fans, if you do want to get into this with Robyn, clearly this is something that there's some joy here diving into all these.
I will go back just to clarify for everything because I said Fenwick is the same thing as Corsi. Minus block shots for the uninitiated, by the way, just to make sure we're all on the same page here. To start everything off, Corsi is a shot percentage based off of block shots, missed shots, and shots on net. Fenwick is the same exact thing, but just without block shots.
So there will be a quiz later. Hope you're all listening. That would actually be fun to do. We should do a quiz show one of these days based on all that. But if you do want to know more about things, I call them fancy stats. But if you want to get more into the metrics, if you're interested in that kind of thing, Robyn is a great resource. So I highly recommend touching base with Robyn to learn more on that stuff. Because
I'll go into the high danger, to scoring chances, to all that. They're all really fun.
Need a good heat map? I know someone who can help you out with that. So, but
Natural Stat Trick is a really fun place, by the way. It is a really fun website for advanced stats.
It is.
It kind of makes it easy to understand and digest.
And we appreciate the work they do, the work Puckpedia does, and, to help us make it a little bit easier for you guys as well. So, Robyn, anything you want to close with here as far as this extension for Jack McBain?
I just got to say, it's an exciting time to be a Utah Mammoth fan. I'll say it again. We talked about it multiple times over the course of this off season, but it's just so nice to be there, to be here, because this team is making strides this off season to get to where they need to be, to get to what we're hoping is a playoff team next off season. That's next season, I should say, not off season, but next season.
And to piggyback off that, I think we really are beginning to see who the players are that Bill Armstrong trusts to get them there. So that says a lot for Jack McBain. So I think that's huge unto itself. Robyn, folks will have their own opinions on this. Where can they reach us to share them?
Yeah, you can. You can just drop us a comment in on the YouTube video. That's for sure. But 2, you can find us anywhere on social media at Locked On Mammoth. That's at Locked On Mammoth. You can find me personally over on the app formerly known as Twitter at Robyn_Leaño.
And I'm at Tom Talks on Blue Sky, at Callahan on Air on Twitter. McBain is McBack. Let us know what you think. We are so happy to be able to bring you the breaking news here. It's a big signing for the Utah Mammoth, and it really does bring a much clearer picture into focus for what this team's going to look like come training camp. So for Robyn, I'm Tom. Thanks for joining us on Locked On Mammoth.